Welcome back. We are now on page 7 of the notes. For this problem here, we have x double prime plus 25x equals 10 cos 5t. First thing we're always going to do, as usual, is find the complementary solution. So the characteristic polynomial is r squared plus 25 equals 0, which says that r equals plus or minus 5i. Okay, so xc then has to be, well, it's real part 0, and then imaginary part is 5. So I think the way that this is going to go is c1 e to the 0t, which I will just call 1, times cos 5t, plus c2 e to the 0t sine 5t. So please see the last section's notes, unit 3-1, if you're unclear where I came up with this as my complementary solution. All right, so now when we want to find the particular solution xp, well, it has to be of the form, well, probably a cos 5t plus b sine 5t, right? Or at least that's the naive thing to do, right? The reason that this is, I guess I'm calling it naive, is because you'll notice that the particular solution is exactly of the same form as the complementary, right? Instead of C1, I just have an A, right? And instead of C2, I have B. But essentially, these are just supposed to represent constants. So in fact, I have the exact same form as the complementary. So same form as complementary, XC. So anytime this happens, so anytime your particular solution is of the same type as your complementary, you do the following. You multiply by a factor of the independent variable. In this case, that's t. Okay, so now our new and improved xp, we'll put it here, it is t times a cos 5t plus b sine 5t, which if you want, you can leave it like this. That's totally fine. I'm going to expand it out. At cos 5t plus bt sine 5t. All right. I'm going to need xp prime. We're going to get a little short on room here, so let's see if I can do this. That's a cos 5t minus 5at sine 5t plus b sine 5t plus 5bt cos 5t. And I will leave it to you to verify xp double prime. There's going to be some product rule. Notice that this one follows a minus sign. You're going to have a product rule after a minus sign here, so make sure you put stuff in parentheses. This product rule is after a plus sign, so everything's okay. But here's what xp double prime is. All right, so what that tells us then is that, well, I'll go back up here. The 10 cos 5t from the right-hand side has to equal, well, xp double prime, which is all of this here, plus 25 times just xp, which is this here. And so what we get is the following: 10 cos 5t. Please verify this. It's going to take quite a bit of doing, so make sure you work it all out. But I got, when it all works out, you get 10b times cos 5t plus minus 10a sine 5t. All right, so what that tells us is that 10b has to equal 10, right? Coefficients of cosine have to match up, and similarly the coefficients of sine have to match up. Well, there's a 0 sign over here, so that means that minus 10a has to be 0. And so a is 0, b is 1. And so that tells us that xp is, well, 0 times t times cos 5t plus 1 times t times sine 5t. Okay, so the general solution is therefore the complementary solution, which is c1 cos 5t plus c2 sine 5t plus the particular solution, which is t sine 5t. And I need to solve the initial value problem right here that I've underlined. You'll see that I need x prime. Okay, so that means coming over here, x prime is going to be minus 5c1 sine 5t plus 5c2 cos 5t plus sine 5t plus 5t cos 5t. And so the system of equations that I get is that 0 is what I get when I plug in 0 in the first line. So I get c1, well, sine of 0 is 0, and now here I have a factor of 0 times anything is 0. So actually c1 is 0, okay, done. And now 1 is what I get when I plug in 0 to this line here. Well, c1 is 0, right? So that's automatically gone. So here I get a 5c2, and that sine of 0 is 0, and now here I have a factor of t. I'm plugging in 0, so that goes away. So that means that c2 is just 1/5. Okay, so that means that x is now, well, c1 times cos 5t, well, that's 0, plus c2 sine 5t, and now that particular solution is still there. All right, so the big takeaway from this page here is that if your particular solution has anything in common with your complementary solution, you multiply it by a factor of t. Okay, this is maybe the biggest takeaway from this page, because all the rest of this we've done a million times before, but this right here. All right, so put stars around it, whatever you need. Okay, in the next video, we'll proceed with page 8.